So it's early January 2026 and Iran's economy is tanking harder than a bad stock pick when you buy the dip and then the dip keeps dipping and then that dip dips and everybody's just freaking out. That's exactly what's going on in Iran right now. And as of today, the breaking news is President Trump said on Truth Social, if Iran shoots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So as you can see, the gloves may be taken off against Iran any day now. And the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, who's supposed to be the reformist guy elected back in 2024, dropped a bomb on national TV just a few days ago. He says Iran is locked in a full-scale total war with the US, Israel, and pretty much all of Europe. It's like the guy who shows up to the party on steroids and just wants to fight everybody. This isn't just some proxy dust up in Syria or Yemen. This is straight up a claim of total war. He's blaming sanctions and everything else for trying to kneecap their country. Again, you got the guy on steroids showing up to the party who's also the victim. You all are against me. It's all your fault. I have nothing to do with it. And then fast forward to today, Donald Trump, he hits Truth Social with that haymaker. If Iran starts gunning down these protesters, that the US is going to come in hot and light up the streets. And the US is locked and loaded to take on Iran, as you probably have guessed. But in this video, I'll be covering why the US is locked and loaded and why this isn't just rhetoric. This is a powder keg where domestic meltdowns are meeting a global stare down from the United States. And the stakes are incredibly high, as you can imagine. This could flip the entire script in the Middle East overnight. So stick around because we're going to break down why this total war claim, it sounds very nuts for coming from Iran, but how these threats are stacking up, the tech that could go up against these threats. So again, you're in a country where people have to stand in line for bread. That's how bad the economy is, and violence has ramped up fast. Security forces, including the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, have rolled in with live rounds and tear gas. Casualties so far, reports are saying at least 6 protesters and 1 officer has been downed, over 50 wounded total, though numbers vary a bit between Al Jazeera's and the legacy media's claims. We've got reports of crowds storming a governor's office in one province, and these rebellious youth, is what Iran is calling them, have pulled off 40 plus hit and run ops against cops as of just January 1st alone. What is Tehran's response though? So they've done total internet blackouts to choke the information flow to all of their population. They've done mass arrests and then finger pointing at the US and Israel for having foreign agents stirring the pot. Yeah, everybody in our country should just be happy that they're all broke, hyperinflation, everybody at the top gets all the money and all the spoils, and the people at the bottom get nothing. They should just be happy. This must be foreign agents that are standing up to us. That's basically how crazy the regime is at this point and how much of a stranglehold they have on the population. But again, President Trump is going to call that bluff, saying that if they do continuously kill their population like we've seen them do many times before, the US is going to step in and the US is locked and loaded. But by January 2nd, as of today, the time I'm making this video, Iran's Supreme National Security Council head Ali Larijani clapped back, accusing Washington and Tel Aviv of scripting the whole thing and warning any foreign troops in the region to watch their step, promising a harsh response and a very harsh letter will be sent if the lines get crossed. Obviously, it'll be harsher than that. Iran's got proxy armies across the globe. They've got sleeper cells, but this all goes back to the bigger gripes. They're always griping about the sanctions that have been squeezing them, and then Israeli intel on Iran building missile post strikes shows that the missiles are now being built at a higher level than they've ever been built before. So analysts are seeing US options are stacking up, more sanctions, proxy pushes, so pushing their armies even further to the brink and striking more of their proxy armies, or even direct plays, all riding on this unrest wave to maybe crack the regime wide open. Is this a regime change play? Well, it looks to be a potential support if the population itself can actually stand up to the threat. But keep in mind, Iran's been strangling and killing anybody that has a different opinion than the regime, than the Ayatollah, for decades. So now you've basically removed most people with a backbone, but as it turns out, the Iranian people are incredibly strong. And from these protests, we can see they're even staring danger in the face, and they're going head to head with a regime that basically doesn't care if they live or die. They don't care if during these protests they actually have to kill all of them, is what it appears like. But let's shift gears to the hardware that could turn this entire region into the biggest New Year's fireworks display that anyone has ever seen. So first we'll talk about the US Navy's MQ-4C Triton. That's kind of what I think of now when I think of leading the way for ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. That's the high altitude, long endurance unmanned aerial vehicle system, or UAV. It's built for eyes in the sky over hot zones like what we've seen in the Caribbean, but specifically places like the Persian Gulf, looking at the areas like the Straits of Hormuz, seeing what Iran is doing with all their different boat swarms, their desire to shut down that strait and shut down the flow of oil. This MQ-4C keeps tabs on everything that they've got going on. Northrop Grumman rolled this out as a Triton variant of the Global Hawk, but it's tuned for maritime patrol, really. So think 45,000 foot ceiling, 8,200 nautical mile range on a single tank of gas. This thing might as well be called the MQ-4C Prius at this point, and it can loiter for pushing 30 hours straight. Its power plant is a Rolls-Royce AE307H turbofan. It sips fuel at around 500 pounds per hour while cruising at 310 miles per hour, which is relatively fast for a drone this size. And it's efficient enough to cover the Straits of Hormuz loop without breaking a sweat. It's launched from Al Dhafra Air Base in Abu Dhabi. Likely it's airborne as we speak right now, possibly not flying over Iran yet, but it could be with the flip of a switch. It's already sniffing recon over some of the borders outside of Iran, in my opinion, and it can feed real-time intel on troop movements or missile preparations amid these protests. Design-wise, it's all about stealthy persistence. It's made with composite airframes for low radar cross-section. Its wingspan is over 130 feet for that bird-like glide that's super efficient. And then sensor pods are cramped with electro-optical infrared cameras, synthetic aperture radar for ground mapping down to meter resolution. On an MGRS grid, it goes down to a meter. It can look at one of those little grids, which is amazing. And then the signals gear can eavesdrop on comms chatter. That's probably one of the biggest things. Eavesdropping and determining what this regime is going to do and what they're going to do in response to these protests. Its performance peaks out at about Mach 0.7, but the endurance is the real strong part about this drone, and that sells it. It can spot a buildup, or it can spot troop movements from over 500 nautical miles away and then relay that information to F-35s or Aegis-equipped ships from the US Navy without ever having to land. And this ties in ground play and ground options and gives real-time information to the decision makers back in Washington. And then you've got special ops units like the Marine Recon Forces. These have become some of my favorite special operations forces. Navy SEALs, don't worry, you're still important. Don't worry, your ego is still, it still matters. But these recon Marines are highly capable and they're elite reconnaissance units. And when it comes to the main mission right now, it's reconnaissance. So tying in these elite force recon units into the reconnaissance that's coming from the MQ-4C Triton, it just makes sense. And then these units are actually trained for deep insertions via helo or subs using information from the Triton for their infill. So they could be looking at the different protests, they could be looking at the responses and the different troop movements, they could be seeing which border is the hottest, and they could scout IRGC positions before a precision drop happens. And then we've also got to acknowledge the fact that Israel is in the region, obviously, and Israel is just waiting and preparing likely for the next time they have to go in. And at this point, it looks like it's not going to be striking WMD refinement places like the centrifuges that were struck before, but now it's more of the ballistic missile capability. So it's kind of like Iran wants to hold a gun to the head of Tel Aviv with all these ballistic missiles, but Israel's got a response for that. Recently, over a $10 billion deal has just came down for jets alone for Israel. So Israel's main contract just dropped. That is about $10 billion just for jets, likely fighter jets, ISR platforms, and one of the biggest parts of that is the F-35I Adir. That is a stealth fighter variant, and it's logged over 200 nautical miles into Iranian airspace in combat. It has the ability to do that. It's combat tested to go 200 miles deep into Iranian airspace and just blast past any of the defenses that they have. That's going to be the main part, I think, of this multi-billion-dollar jet package that Israel now has. And the main focus of of that is to strike down the ballistic missiles, the launchers, the ballistic missiles themselves that could actually strike Tel Aviv again. And it's going to be powered by a Pratt & Whitney F135 afterburning turbofan. And it just makes me excited to say that, if you can't notice. But it pushes 43,000 pounds of thrust for 1,200 mile per hour dashes, extremely fast and extremely low observable, which is typically not combined into the same package. Usually you get one or the other. But to me, the F-35, the F-35I, which is updated, the avionics have been updated, completely focused in on Iran and some of the other regions in the area. The avionics in the F-35I are suited to that exact fight and that exact mission. But you've got that low observable design, meaning that it can ghost radars at 50,000 feet. And it's perfect for escorting in drones or lasing in targets that could be struck. The targets likely would be IRGC positions that would be trying to destroy and kill these protesters. And that would start out as some sort of a symbolic way at the beginning to say, hey, don't do that. We're going to strike down this IRGC guard post. Stop killing civilians. That might be one of the first operations that we see should this go down. But now let's layer in the ordnance that makes these airframes bite and what could be used against Iran. So for the US side, think about the AGM-158C. That is an LRASM. That's your first beautiful acronym. That's a long-range anti-ship missile, but it can also be used for ground targets as well. Think IRGC headquarters, strategic command and control nodes of the regime, but it's a stealthy cruise missile that can be slung underneath the F-35 wings, or it can be launched from submarines. It's got a 200-plus mile standoff range and GPS INS, inertial is definitely a word, inertial navigation system guidance that's fused with infrared seekers for that nice terminal in-game pop that gives the crowd the reaction that they want. It's autonomous enough to dodge jamming and pick Iranian patrol boats in the Gulf without a pilot even having to say so. Again, you could strike those targets in the Gulf, striking those different ships of Iran, or even striking ground targets with this thing. But autonomy here is the key. So it's got AI-driven pathing that allows it to path itself around and evade S-400s. Those are surface-to-air missiles. It can hit Mach 0.8 on a turbofan engine while keeping radar signature tinier than a drone's shadow. Just very capable weapon here. But then on the precision end, let's talk about the GBU-53 Stormbreaker. This is a glide bomb that can be dropped from high altitude. It can be guided in with laser, GPS. It can even be lased in from teams on the ground as well, and it can hit moving targets like an IRGC convoy. You could release it from 70 nautical miles out and then have it guide itself in with the wings that pop out and have it just smack that IRGC convoy. And it's perfect for special operations and teaming up with them. The integration with SOF is huge with that. So think Delta operators on the ground painting a target, and then that bomb snakes in autonomously. If the comms drop off, doesn't matter. The AI, it's following the last known position, and it would likely still strike that convoy. But Iran isn't slouching, right? Iran's got a vote in this as well. Obviously, the Fatah 110 family is their short-range ballistic missiles, and those are road-mobile launchers that fire solid-fuel rockets about 186 miles, even adaptations saying they could go up to 500 nautical miles with inertial guidance and optical seekers. This could pepper U.S. bases in the region, and Iran has done that before. The accuracy of those things is likely down to somewhere around 10 meters, but it's vulnerable to the Iron Dome intercepts. It's also vulnerable to other assets in the region. Think F-15s teamed up with specialized missiles to go after these things. But a broader play here, kind of getting to where this could go, is the US and Israel teaming up to use those F-35s for lasing in bombs, hitting the targets that are responsible for killing any of these protesters, and making more of a symbolic strike, using drones to do these strikes, using other weapons to take down any of these bad actors in the IRGC that are going to slay these protesters. Okay, let's game this out with a straight up what if based on some of the chatter that's going down right now. So we won't do anything too hypothetical. It won't be a full Hollywood spin, but kind of what we might see. So let's say protests hit a flashpoint in Tehran. Let's say it's in a couple days here. The IRGC, the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, could roll into that central square where a lot of these protests are happening. About 10,000 people are said to be protesting right now. And then think live fire drops. So a dozen or more strikes hitting these different protesters. lighting them up. We would see the clips on social media, and that's one of the biggest enemies for the IRGC right now, is it would all be highlighted, and President Trump's red line would get tripped. Likely, from what we saw posted on Truth Social just as of today. And then CENTCOM, that's the United States Central Command, could greenlight a rapid response package out of Al Udeid in Qatar. So think about a first wave. So a pair of MQ-4C Tritons, they could already be airborne doing some of their operations. They could be up at 40,000 feet, and there could be specialty MQ-4Cs that are actually loaded out with weapons. So think Hellfires that are ready in case something like this popped off. Think of those Hellfires launching from 50 or 60,000 feet and then streaking in and striking an IRGC headquarters. That would be a big statement. But what we might also see with those RQ-4s is targeting F-35s. So passing real-time targeting data for an IRGC convoy that just struck these protesters, and now they're trying to escape and blend in with the local population. But not so fast. That RQ-4C, the ability for it to track them and track them as they try to disperse into the civilian population would be something that would be just another Tuesday for that drone. And then you could target it with a Stormbreaker coming off of an F-35 and striking these different IRGC commandos that are trying to blend in with the population before they even get to have dinner. And then the F-35s would be back on the deck ready. They'd get refueled and armed up, because likely after this, and this is kind of what I wanted to get at, is likely after this, there would be a massive barrage of drones being sent towards Israel again. So U.S. forces in the area, F-15Es that are loaded out with those anti-drone rockets, they'd be ready to roll in and strike these different drones as well. So that would kind of be counterplay that I would see Iran actually doing, is launching a massive wave of these drones to try to say, hey, don't hit our IRGC core, and we're going to keep killing our protesters. Because again, that's what Iran does. It's like the zebra has stripes. The stripes on the Iran leadership is they kill protesters that are trying to protest against anything the regime doesn't want to have happen. Like, again, all the different inflation markers, the terrible way of life that they've inflicted on their people, they want that to just be, this is normal. This is what you should appreciate, that you have to stand in lines for bread while we sit in our palaces. That's kind of the mindset of the president of Iran and some of the religious figures in Iran as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few days that red line is crossed, even just thinking of someone who's not listening to orders. When it comes to order and discipline in a regime like this, who knows? Someone could pop off, kill a bunch of protesters, and cross that red line. But in my opinion, it looks like Israel, it looks like U.S. assets in the area would be ready to strike back. What do you think? Where do you think this goes from here in the next few days? Would love to hear your perspective. Let me know in the comments below. And then follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting on those pretty much every day. And then watch one of these videos that pops up right here. Pretty much the best compliment you can give me is just watch one of these videos. It helps the channel grow exponentially, and I'd greatly appreciate it. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.